watching Shalom TV, celebrating Jewish culture. Funding for Shalom TV has been provided by the following: and by viewers like you.
I'm Gary Gazark with this week's Israel Update. A recent article in Israeli media has raised the possibility that Israel will retaliate against the Palestinians' bid for statehood in the United Nations General Assembly by revoking the Oslo Accords. According to the articles, National Security Advisor Yaakov Amidror is leading a group that is studying the repercussions of such a move, and that it will be one of the options considered by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Perhaps the most telling quote in the article is from an anonymous source who says Netanyahu is opposed to actions such as annexing settlements to Israel in response to a Palestinian move at the UN. Therefore, the National Security Council is evaluating other possibilities, one of them being voiding the Oslo Accords. In any case, if these reports are accurate, it means that Netanyahu has already ruled out the most severe possible response to the Palestinians' unilateral moves, and certainly the one most beloved by the right wing of his governing coalition. Revoking the Oslo Accords, moreover, would not appear to mean very much at this point. The Accords have, in effect, been a dead letter for years, undermined by Palestinian terrorism and superseded by the George Bush so-called roadmap, as well as other documents and declarations. The Israeli left, meanwhile, has called the proposal to revoke the Oslo Accords childish, and akin to a fellow saying he'll cut off his own nose to spite someone else's face. Whether the Palestinians are worried about such a Knesset move or not, it is clear that Palestinian sympathizers are worried for two reasons. First is out of an understand that one of the major concessions made by Israel in the original Oslo Accords was its recognition of the PLO as the legitimate representative of the Palestinian people. This, in effect, legitimized what had once been a despised terrorist group as a respectable political organization and quasi-government. Revoking the Accords would therefore represent a severe symbolic blow to the Palestinian national movement. However much support they have garnered in the United Nations, Palestinian legitimacy has ironically always been dependent on Israel's willingness to recognize it. For all their bluster, that appears to be something that the Palestinians and their supporters do not want to lose. And the second reason for Palestinian concern with Israel's revoking the Oslo Accords is that it will free Israel from making payments to the West Bank Palestinian Authority based on the Oslo Accords. The Palestinians would seem to have a lot to lose if Israel does react this way to a UN affirmation of Palestinian statehood. Apparently, the American administration has not so far conveyed directly to the Palestinian Authority its opposition to a United Nations resolution in support of Palestinian statehood. In a recent statement to a PLO meeting in Ramallah, PA President Abu Mazen said, "We heard about their opposition through mediators. Our leadership hasn't received a clear American rejection of the idea to go to the UN. We don't want a clash with America. We want to coordinate our positions with the world, including the US," concluded PA Chairman. Meanwhile, according to another recent PA statement, Palestinian Authority local elections in October will only be held in Judea and Samaria because Hamas is preventing elections preparations in Gaza. This would indicate that the talk of unity between the two terrorist groups, Hamas and Fatah, is little more than a joke right now, as the two cannot even agree about local elections, much less to elections for a unifying leader. Speaking on condition of anonymity, a senior electoral official said the PA government had informed the Central Elections Commission that it had decided to hold municipal elections only in the West Bank, Judea and Samaria, on October 22nd. The Ramallah so-called government confirmed the decision and condemned Hamas for preventing the Central Elections Committee from fulfilling its mission in Gaza and doing its work. Hamas spokesman in turn blamed Fatah for going back on its pledge to reform the CEC under terms of a reconciliation deal between Hamas and Fatah in Cairo. Under current Israeli laws, Israeli Jews may not marry in a civil ceremony in Israel. To be married in the State of Israel, Israeli Jews can only be married in an Orthodox Jewish ceremony officiated by a state-sanctioned Orthodox rabbi. All that would change if a bill sponsored by Nitzan Horowitz of the left-leaning Meretz or New Movement Party was passed into Israeli law. The bill would also apply to divorce proceedings, permitting a couple to end their marriage in the same type of ceremony in which they were married. However, when the bill came to a Knesset vote, the bill is defeated in its preliminary reading by a vote of 40 to 17. Several couples who want to marry in civil ceremonies appeared in the Knesset for the debate, including some dressed in full wedding attire. MK Orit Zuaretz from Kadima Party even addressed the Knesset wearing a veil. An enormous majority of Israelis has supported freedom of choice in marriage for years, said the Nitzan Horowitz, author of the bill. Nonetheless, the ultra-Orthodox factions have once again succeeded in causing the coalition to reject the proposed law. The Knesset once again gave in to religious coercion and political cowardice and is depriving hundreds of thousands of Israelis of a basic civil right, he added. Even as the Knesset was voting down the bill, researchers from Ben-Gurion University unveiled the results of their recent research on the issue of civil marriage. The study found that 2/3 of the Israeli public support civil marriage, although only 1/3 of Israelis want to be married in a civil ceremony. The study also examined the views on civil marriage held by voters for the 4 largest parties in the Knesset. While slightly fewer than half of Likud members support civil marriage, among Kadima, Israel Beitenu, and Labor members, a huge majority of more than 80% do support civil marriage. It is somewhat surprising, then, that most Kadima Knesset members were absent during the vote on the Horowitz bill and refused to support civil marriage. Histadrut Labor Federation Chairman Ofer Eini told Israeli media that he does not intend on bringing down the government by joining the housing protests, but stressed that it must take action to lower housing prices and the cost of living. Histadrut and the Union of Local Authorities joined the campaign against the high price of housing and the general cost of living that has taken Israel by storm in recent weeks. 10 city protest sites have sprouted in numerous cities and towns across Israel, and the struggle is intensifying every day. This is a real protest to change Israel's social order, to restore social justice, Eini said, noting that the protest is not only about housing prices, but about general cost of living. One sees a situation where young people and students cannot buy or rent an apartment because prices are sky high. The country must take responsibility and repair this situation, Eini said, and added that he approached Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to find a general solution to the high price of living in Israel, and emphasized to him that the government must find an all-encompassing solution, not a targeted one. Meanwhile, dozens of people gather daily in front of the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange and chant in protest of rising prices. In addition to the demonstrations and road blocking that have been going on daily, protest organizers are planning to hold marches in Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, Beersheba, Haifa, and Nazareth. Each will end in a mass assembly. Organizers expect tens of thousands of people from all over the country to participate. For Shalom TV, I'm Gary Gazark with this week's Israel Update.